This is my wife, Leah. And there's one thing that she loves more than anything else in the world.
Peanut butter banana sandwiches?
No, the royal family.
Oh, I do. You do.
In light of recent events, I decided that it might be fun to teach her how to memorize all the kings and queens in British history.
Would that be cool to know? Would you like to know that?
Okay.
When I was a little boy, and I was going to the school called Eton End, which was the pre-K for Eton. I don't know if I would have ended up there, but I like to think that I would have, wearing top hats and coattails. Back then, we had to memorize a poem, very famous poem in England, that gives you almost all of the kings and queens in history. Here's the poem. I'm gonna read it to you. It's quite fun. Willy Willy, Harry Stee, Harry Dick, John, Harry 3. 1, 2, 3, Ned's, Richard 2. Henry 4, 5, 6, then who? Edward 4, 5, Dick the Bad, Harry's Twain and Ned the Lad, Mary, Bessie, James the Vain, Charlie, Charlie, James again, William and Mary, Anne, Gloria, 4 Georges, William and Victoria, Edward, George, repeat the Twain, Liz the Second, Charles again. Now this was slightly updated recently. Obviously that last line used to not have any mention of Charles, but now it does. Does this give you all the history? No, but it's a quick mnemonic verse to get in your head all of these kings and queens through a fun, easy rhyme. Now, I must say that stuff like this is actually a really good way to memorize something. What I mean by that is something that is in the form of a song or a rhyme or a rap.
My money don't jiggle jiggle.
Is a really quick, catchy way to get something into your memory for the long term. Especially if you can put it to music, that's kind of the key spot. Now for this video, I actually really wanted to write some music to perform this for you, but I'm not that good of a musician anymore, at least. I definitely can't sing.
Cheap bass! Cheap bass!
Now, my wife is pretty much an expert when it comes to how memory techniques work. Does she use them? Not really. But she has a pretty darn good natural memory, so I'll allow it. Let's let her finish this beautiful bite. Okay. Anyways, the first step was to get her to read the dang thing aloud, just so she could get acquainted with it. But she had some questions.
These are the royal people?
Yeah, it's some of them, most of them are nicknames. Okay, but it's...
Who is Steve?
Now, just so you know, Stee is short for Stephen, Willie is short for William, Harry is Henry, Ned is Edward, Bessie is Elizabeth, and Twain means two or twice. Also, it goes without saying that Dick is Richard. And yeah, there's this whole story about Dick the Bad, of course. Trust me, there's tons of history hidden between the lines of this poem. Not gonna go into it all now, but it's definitely worth looking into because it's fascinating Game of Thrones style shit. Just absolutely bonkers. I highly suggest checking out CGP Gray's video of a brief history of the royal family. It's, mind my English, f***ing mental.
Willy, Willy, Harry, Steve.
So she read the poem to herself out loud, carefully and fully attentive. That's super important. If you're not present while doing this, then what's the point? And here's a pro tip. As you read it, really try to visualize and feel what is being said through the poem. Don't just read the words on the page. Make it come alive in your mind. And or take note of anything interesting that pops out at you as you read it.
They're doing that Kanye thing where it's like it rhymes but it doesn't rhyme, but it's gonna make you think it rhymes.
Next, once she had read the poem, I made her write out all of the first letters of each word, including capitalization and punctuation. There's this sort of memory magic that happens when you do this. I can't explain it. I go into this technique a lot more in one of my other videos. Link in the description.
All right, so now that you have it written down, the next thing is to read this as best as you can without looking at this, just by seeing the first letters. Just try it. If you have to peek, you have to peek, but just try to do it without.
Willy, Willy, Harry, Steve.
Now, once you have the first letters of every word, the next step is to read from that transcription and see if you can get all the words. Now, your brain will struggle a little bit to kind of find the words that represented these single letters, but it can do it really well, surprisingly well, better than you think. Because imagine, you're reading a poem and then suddenly you can only see the first letter. That's significantly less information than the whole poem, right? But magically your brain can do it. And I think when you go through the process of writing down the letters beforehand, you're subconsciously actually recording some of the information in your memory.
Anne, Gloria, 4 Georges, William and Victoria.
So you can see here, she's struggling a little bit. She's slowly kind of figuring it out, but that's part of the process. And that's really where the powerful memory stickiness happens.
All right. So in most cases, if it's short enough, you could probably do that a couple times and then try it without, and usually it'll be there. But I would suggest supplementing it with a memory palace. So we're actually gonna put each line, an image for what it is, on a location here in this room. Now, I've done a couple of videos on how to memorize lines really quickly and text pretty quickly. And in one, I did this funny, kind of interesting technique where you write the first letter of the first word of each line. And then in another video, I did one where you actually use the memory palace. Now, the technique where you write the first letter is really good for kind of short, varying lines. Things that read as kind of text, I think, is best. For a poem like this, where it's just a bunch of names and silly rhymes, and it's a big paragraph and a lot of repeats, I think the technique might not work as well. So I think the way I'm gonna approach it is to do a combination. To have her start by doing the method where you write the first letter, but then also supplementing it with a memory palace. And I think those two combined will actually get it in her brain pretty solidly and quickly.
If you don't know what a memory palace is, it's basically a way to store images of what you're trying to memorize and placing them on real life locations, so that when you try to remember it, you can mentally think of those places and it'll remind you of the lines. So since we're in this living room area, I decided to choose some locations that were near us.
We can do the lamp, the camera stand there, this part of the sofa, this part of the sofa, your lap, that part of the sofa, the ottoman over there, the fireplace, the TV, that stand, and then maybe the center of the carpet.
I'm not gonna remember this.
Yeah, you will. It's just a little loop.
All right, what comes next is usually the weirdest part of the whole process because it involves coming up with and improvising some really bizarre imagery that's kind of outlandish, sexual, over the top, that will just help you remember the thing it is that you're trying to remember. So we got a lot of willies. We're gonna think of some willies. We got a lot of dicks. We could think of a lot of dicks. No wonder this was a popular schoolboy thing to memorize, because it was just like a chance for us to say naughty words. And on top of that, we're taking these funny images and we're imagining them on the locations of our memory palace. So like on the lampshade, on the ottoman, on the TV, and so on.
Thing and Charles again.
All right, that wraps it up.
I'm nervous though.
Can she get them all?
Okay, on the lamp. Okay, Willy, Willie, Harry, Steve, Harry, Dick, John, Harry 3. 1, 2, 3, Ned, Richard 2, Harry 4, 5, 6, then who? Edward 4, 5, Dick the Bad, Harry's Twain and Ned the Lad, Mary, Bessie, James the Vain, Charlie, Charlie, James again, William and Mary, and Gloria, 4 Georges, William and Victoria, Edward George, repeat the Twain, Liz the Second, Charles again.
Good. Bravo.
This is my Tinks moment, so let me have it.
Who is Tinks?
How did...
Thanks for watching, guys. I hope that was insightful. Watching
That was pretty cool.
a live teaching of how to apply techniques to something that, you know, it's a bit tricky to memorize. You could do it the rote, repetitious way, but that's going to take some time. This is a little quicker and can work on anybody, not just a memory champion.
Brilliant, fabulous, fun wives.
Especially when you're trying to memorize something that's like a lot of similar names that aren't
Except for Steven.
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 It's an original name.
Steven
for
was a
king.
frat bro.
That probably was the.
Steven had a pop collar.
That was like the
And a
millennial
super powdered
name
whip.
of the time. Probably was a really cool looking guy.
No, I bet Steve had bad teeth and was mean to people.
I'm gonna post a picture of him right here, insert it right here, and just pretend like we're reacting because I don't know what he looks like. Oh, what a good looking guy. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe.
Toodaloo.
Any last words?
No. Princess Diana should have been in there.
She's not a